unleashing an unholy reign of terror that holds an entire community in the grip of eternity.
The struggle between good and evil goes on.
Welcome to Good Movie, Bad Movie, the podcast where we delve into the best and worst of cinema. Each week, we dissect two movies that are interconnected by subject, genre, or theme and challenge the labels of good and bad, questioning whether the general public's perception is accurate. Okay, so what makes a movie good? Our definition hinges on movies that have garnered over 65% on major rating platforms or were acclaimed as good upon their release. Same but opposite for bad movie. We categorize these films that have garnered under 65% on major rating platforms or were deemed bad upon initial release. So, for example, Rocky Horror Picture Show is cherished now. Everyone loves it. Upon release, people absolutely hated that movie. We would still consider that a bad movie. At the close of each episode, we decide whether the public rating aligns with reality. Yes, we are deciding that reality. Could a good movie potentially be a bad movie and vice versa? Probably, maybe, all the in between. I'm Alyssa Bonanno, your host, and here's my co-host, Bec Hack.
Hello.
Hi. All right, this week, for our first episode ever, we're plunging into Ghost Rider, directed by Mark Steven Johnson, and Psychomania, directed by Don Sharp. Let's do it.
We're kicking off with Ghost Rider, also known as Johnny Blaze in one of his iterations. He made his first appearance in Marvel Spotlight number 5, which was published by Marvel Comics in August 1972. The character was created by writer Roy Thomas, artist Mike Plug, and editor Gary Friedrich. Ghost Rider's debut marked the beginning of a unique superhero with demonic motorcycle riding persona.
But in my mind, he's kind of one of the first anti-hero characters that Marvel really got behind.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about this as well. Marvel's relationship with the supernatural and like heaven and hell, kind of bringing in this religious bend to the supernatural and their superheroes. But we can dive into that more once we talk about Ghost Rider 2007.
Sure.
It was directed by Mark Steven Johnson. It was released February 16th, 2007.
Should we talk about Mark Steven Johnson quickly? And I don't have much to say other than I think this guy only directed in the 2000s and it shows.
And then he was banned forever.
He was never allowed to make another movie ever again. It was like
locked
this
in the basement.
We put him in the basement. It was like this in rom-coms. And then this guy, I didn't see anything he did after like 2013.
He got his rights taken away for his craft because he just like didn't deliver.
Did he have like
that?
Okay, was this a box office success or failure? I actually didn't look.
It was a great success.
Oh.
It was a great success, but absolutely reviled by critics, which is why we are also introducing Ghost Rider as our episode's bad movie under review.
This is absolutely our bad movie. What was the general rating of this?
20%, 2.5 out of 10.
Oh yeah, 27% Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, that's horrible.
It was pretty brutalized when it was released. It seems time has not been kind to its idiosyncrasies.
It's funny comparing a movie, spoiler, Psychomania is from the 70s. It's funny comparing a movie from the 70s and the early 2000s and seeing one that actually aged fairly well and one that aged extremely poorly, and having the one that aged poorly being the more modern one.
Yeah, the more modern one, the one with the bigger budget, the one with, kind of the big name stars. And it's interesting because both are very much of their time. So there had been talks. So Marvel through the 90s, they were kind of introducing certain properties as cinematic adaptations. Blade.
Oh, sure.
Great movie.
Oh, I didn't realize that was Marvel. Marvel is so...
Blade is Marvel.
Okay,
yeah.
When I think Marvel, I think squeaky clean superheroes, and I consider DC to be the darker bend. It's interesting that both of these, which, as you said, deal with like weird religious undertones, are Marvel movies.
And so Blade is considered kind of the first entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Hot.
I know.
That's hot.
And it's so good. I love that movie. For a later episode.
Truly.
But yeah, so development for Ghost Rider 2007 began actually in 1992.
Oh, Christ.
And it languished in development hell for about 10 years until 2001 when they finally got a director. They got a workable script, allegedly. Determined this script was workable. When there was announced that Johnny Depp was interested, Nick Cage came on the scene. And is Nick Cage a big fan of Ghost Rider?
Well, Okay, so Johnny Depp, they actually, from my understanding, they tried to shop it to Johnny Depp.
Oh,
but this was when
really?
Johnny Depp was in his, I forget, he called people like Brad Pitt, like the super movie boys. It was some variation of that where essentially he really was trying to just take the more subversive roles and still be considered after 21 Jump Street as we would say the indie guy. But I think more than anything, he was trying to be just the lovable offbeat guy. He never wanted to be an actor. He always wanted to be a musician. So I think he was interested in this, but there was some complication where he turned it down for some other reason. And then they had Keanu Reeves. Who,
I didn't know they had Keanu.
They had Keanu. And
oh my God, that would have been so hot.
Right? And
Keanu's
then it's somewhere in this, and I don't quite know the actual timeline, Nicolas Cage came in because he's obsessed with Ghost Rider.
Yeah, he had gotten wind that there was an adaptation in the works.
Which I wonder, this is just absolute pure speculation, but knowing that Johnny Depp and Nicolas Cage were friends and knowing that Nicolas Cage got Johnny Depp his first acting role, I wonder if Johnny Depp like told Cage about it.
Oh, that'd be kind of like passing out. Are they still friends?
They have a very muddy, complicated relationship that I have no idea. They're two horrible old men. So I know, who knows? But two of my favorite people on the planet, even though they're horrible and so problematic. Mm-hmm. I love them. But Nicolas Cage did love Ghost Rider. He, pre-production, had a gigantic Ghost Rider tattoo on his bicep. I'm sure he was a nightmare to work with. Maybe he's the reason Mark Steven Johnson never did anything again.
Yeah, he cursed him.
He did. Well, actually, he would not be the first director that Cage has burnt out. Apparently, he's incredibly unruly to work with on set because of his weird method acting German thing.
Yeah.
And he just, if you don't know what to do with him, he just destroys people.
And this is something I think that has been discussed in film circles before as well, where it's if a director knows how to, he's kind of like this animal where a director has to be like a real, and I feel like, they don't make them like they used to.
They don't make
like
them
a
like
real
they used to.
consummate professional where he like knows how to wrangle an actor, especially of Nick Cage's energy and volatility, and to get a really good performance out of him. And I felt while watching Ghost Rider that Mark Steven Johnson,
the three names make it hard.
He did not know how to handle this animal.
I mean, I think you see weird examples of Nicolas Cage being really well handled, actually more modern, and maybe this is just like the older he's getting, his testosterone is lowering and he's a manageable man. Because I
his
feel like
fifth wife is like keeping him, busy.
She's literally 21. She doesn't know what he's doing. But I actually think National Treasure, he's decent in because I think Disney sterilized the fuck out of him and we're like, Cage, stop doing what you're doing. And I think that's the only reason that performance is seemingly palpable.
I was going to say he was really good in Signs, but then I realized that's Mel Gibson, and I get Signs mixed up with Knowing.
Oh, no. Melly Gibson. Hold on, wait. Oh, my God, wait. Now I need to know if I'm right. If, like, anything from the middle of his career
has he done anything good? Like
in the middle?
In those cursed years, languishing in New Orleans.
Maybe he didn't. This is actually worth it. Sorry, I really must have. Con Air, absolute garbage, but hot, delicious garbage.
Wait, Face Off.
Okay, Face Off, I will say, I rewatched it recently. I think it is, really quick sidebar on Face Off. John Travolta and Nicolas Cage they were very serious about learning each other's mannerisms. So at one point they lived together, then they would stay on site and be like, so John, would you say it like this or like this? And John would be like, actually, I'd say it like this. Like they truly, apparently, the behind the scenes, like the cast was losing their mind because these two people were having the best time just being each other.
They shared hair transplants even.
Literally. So I think that was a weird exception because it was just actors by actors.
Actors on actors.
It was literally actors on actors. Anyway,
So
we can
funny.
stop talking about Nicolas Cage.
Yeah,
we can move on.
Oh yeah, so I just thought, last production note, I thought it was really funny that it basically took 15 years to write the script because basically at every point in which it got resurrected.
Oh, beautiful. I see
you.
what you did.
Thank you. Brought out of the grave and let out onto the streets of Hollywood. there was like a major script rewrite because they like couldn't decide who the villain would be. They just couldn't figure out how to get this character into the cinematic universe. And it's so funny that it was rewritten so many times and the script is still a bloated piece of shit.
I actually feel like generally when a script has this many rewrites, it inevitably becomes like this.
Yeah.
Where it's incomprehensible.
Yes.
And you are like, who's the villain? What are the rules?
Why are we looking at this? Yeah. Who is this woman?
Who's the
Eva
second
Mendes.
Ghost Rider?
Yeah. Who's the yeah. I loved the. Okay, we should.
It's time to get
in.
in. Okay. The movie opens on a young Johnny Blaze working in his father's carnival.
Yes.
Where Eva Mendes also works, and I absolutely do not remember her character's name.
Roxanne Simpson. I don't think she works at the carnival. I think she's just dating Johnny.
Wasn't she affiliated with the carnival in some capacity, and that's how she got her like talking thing? Maybe am I project? Whatever. She's around.
Yeah, she goes to the carnival. We see her at the carnival.
Okay. First immediate comment I must make. One, I was struck not only by the carnival of it all, which we talked about, early 2000s, specifically being so heavily carnival themed, and then also
circuses.
Yeah. And then also with names like Roxanne and Johnny, I kept getting struck with, and I've not read the source material. I do not know the original Ghost Rider. But I kept feeling like this was a weird hyper Americana, almost like idolization of what would be stereotypically considered white trash. And I was really confused by that out the gate.
I got weird flashbacks actually to like The Notebook and like Big Fish. You know, like it's like this weird, you know, nostalgia. Like specifically, it seems like this vague post-war America, like utopianism. That's not very convincing, you know, or seems a bit syrupy and weird.
No,
Maybe naive.
Yeah. I agree with that. My only exception to that is Big Fish and The Notebook have like a 1950s bent that is feels softer and feels friendlier. Something about the carnival really felt 80s, 90s, and I don't quite know why, because I don't actually think that is the time period it's supposed to be. It's just the fact that it was poorly made in the 2000s. But it felt plasticky and like it was set in Nashville. Like something just seemed...
I thought it was set in Texas.
Yeah, right. Where it's just like, I don't know. They felt like they were going to go smoke a pack of Marlboros and like, I don't know, cow tip or something. It's just like...
I am unconvinced that a father-son motorcycling duo can make an honest living in this day and age.
So Johnny Blaze and his father are two professional motorcycle stunt people. They're the bowl people.
Yeah, father-son. They like do flips and fly through flaming rings and everybody claps.
But his dad owned the carnival? Or was he just working the carnival?
He just works the carnival.
I don't know why I thought everyone had so much to do with the carnival.
Carnival conspiracy.
Oh my
You were
God.
just like, your brain is trying to justify like, why is this carnival here? And why is everyone at this carnival?
There just could have been so many different ways it was done without the dressings of a carnival.
Well, I believe that is from the I did do a bit of reading on the original Ghost Rider comic, and his background is actually even more convoluted than what we see in the film, which could have led to its problems. But yeah, I think the carnival was an important aspect. But then, you know, first Ghost Rider came out in the 70s.
Yep.
You know, so even its nostalgia was for an earlier time than what we're seeing.
Oh, I see.
Now.
I see. That makes complete sense. Also, I felt like that kid looked nothing like Nicolas Cage.
He was trying his damn hardest to do a Nicolas Cage impression. But it was like his impression of Nicolas Cage imitating a hick.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
He's like,
and it felt really unnatural. But I recognized the effort because he was putting in a lot of effort.
He's putting in a lot of effort, but specifically, so more or less, we find out that Nicolas Cage or Johnny Blaze's father is ill.
Yes, he has cancer.
So a figure approaches Johnny Blaze and offers him a way to cure his father.
Yeah.
And before we get into that more specifically, I did not realize Johnny Blaze had a southern accent until this scene, because all of a sudden this kid looks at the devil and essentially is like, what are you doing? Like, this guy has not had an accent this whole movie. And then turns is like, what in tarnation? Like, they double up on this so fucking hard.
And then they don't let up. You know, they go to 100 and then it just stays full gas the whole way.
No. Nicolas Cage forgets he's supposed to have an accent at major points of this movie. Like, there is no consistency, and they dial up weird things. Like when the devil first approaches young Johnny Blaze, and we see his spooky shadow that's shaped like the devil. It's
the
like,
devil's rolling through town.
the second we saw this man, I was like, oh, he's Satan. They could not have cast a man that looked more like the devil if they cast the devil himself.
I don't know. It was a bit I was like hoping maybe a little mustache and goatee.
A true stereotypical
well,
devil.
and he's not. Is Mephistopheles Satan?
I guess I assumed he was the devil.
Yeah. So it's Mephistopheles, which
yeah.
I don't know. If that's Satan. He's supposed to be like a big devil.
He's king demon.
King demon. Yeah.
Daddy. So Papa demon.
Yeah. Big daddy demon.
Big daddy demon.
And he's rolling through town and he says, I like how you ride, Johnny Blaze. And so he offers Johnny basically a deal to ride for him. It's a bit vague.
He doesn't articulate anything. He just hands him a paper.
Yeah, and he's like, sign here, and I will cure your father's cancer. And Johnny signs because he's young, and this is a theme that we kind of that was established a bit early on, in that Johnny does not understand the consequences of his actions, and he kind of is not able to access certain knowledge or experience that the father is gatekeeping from him. Like, he has a quote, and this will be relevant when we talk about Psychomania.
Sure.
You think there's everything there is to know, and you think you're going to live forever. And then we immediately enter this kind of like, oh no, that my father is dying, and I'm put into this position where I have to make this decision, and I'm not considering the consequences. I'm just considering what I feel I need to do or my desires presently now. So he signs the contract. And then the next day he wakes up. His dad is, basically cured. He's never felt so good in his life.
Verbatim. I've never felt so good. Just like, we get it.
Yeah.
We get
it.
it.
He's jumping around. He's doing cartwheels. He's
Literally.
making coffee. Like, Johnny's, yay, my dad is saved. And then as his dad is saved, he decides to leave the carnival and run off with his beloved Roxanne Simpson. His father does not approve of Johnny, but they don't care because they're young and in love. So they're going to run away together. His dad says, go ahead, take my bike. And then as Johnny begins to ride away on his father's bike, his father attempts a motorcycle stunt, which its nature, I couldn't actually determine what happened in the scene, but he dies.
I was obsessed with this scene because all of a sudden we look at the dad who's not maimed, who's not bleeding. Yeah. There's no wound. He's not even holding his body like this.
Just laying there.
He's laying on the ground. They're like, he's dead. Just like non-specifically dead was all I wrote because I just couldn't stop trying to figure that out.
Yeah. But he made that deal with the devil for nothing. Don't make a deal with the devil, kids. The house always wins.
The Faust of it all.
The Faust of it all. Yeah. The Faust 2007 adaptation.
Johnny's angry.
Yeah.
And drives off into my favorite still image of the entire movie, which is he literally is at a crossroads.
What does it mean?
What does it mean?
Oh shit, what are you gonna do, Johnny?
He's literally at a crossroads and the devil comes to him. And I really liked, for no specific reason, that in this scene he's Pope Devil, not Western Devil. I don't know if you noticed, but devil. I'm gonna keep calling him this Mephistopheles.
He's the devil. Yeah.
Demon. Papa Demon.
Daddy
Papa Demon is dressed generally kind of Western, and in this one scene he's wearing this funny little clergy outfit that
the collar.
Yeah, and
it was so
like,
weird.
Why are you doing this now?
Yeah.
Why now? You could have started with this.
He had to dress up so he could tell him, "You're no good to me dead, Johnny."
god.
And
And
then
then the rain. Oh, I forgot. And
Oh,
it's
yeah, the
not just
rain.
kind of raining. It
It's, like,
is
pouring.
full pouring on these people.
Mm.
It's a satanic baptism, as they say. He's being reborn.
Oh my god, yeah.
Oh god, who would have guessed?
What does it all mean?
What does
What's
it
all
mean?
So-
And that takes us into modern day Johnny.
Yeah, and he's using because of his deal with the devil, we can assume through his death-defying stunts, because he's now a superstar. He's basically the most famous motorcycle stuntman who's ever lived. He's basically like a rock star. People are like pissing themselves over seeing him like jump over a Hummer or something like that.
I was trying to figure out what I equate this to in the real world. And I was like, I don't know. Like, does this exist? Did this exist?
I thought of Evil Knievel, but even then he was kind of this like perverse curiosity. Like I saw him, I was like, who? But we don't really have stuntmen. Chris Angel.
Oh my god, I guess he maybe was like Chris Angel. Yeah, Chris
Or
Angel
the
did
other
arena
guy.
tours.
Yeah, I think he's like a magician.
But people
But
are
like a magician rock star.
but like a hillbilly magician rock star. Like it is
Yeah.
in a stadium, and there are a lot of cowboy hats. I think his first stunt is over is helicopters the first stunt?
No,
That was the
the
Hummers.
20 helicopters is later. The first one is cars. I think
Yeah.
it's just car.
He does like 40, like not even something that's somewhat realistic, which I
Yeah.
think was way funnier.
Yeah.
It was some unbelievable thing, and Nicolas Cage is honestly just kind of being Nicolas Cage as
Yeah.
Johnny Blaze. So we are now to Nicolas Cage as an adult. He's talking to his crew. His crew's like very concerned. Bless that his right hand, who's very concerned, like, Johnny, don't do it. And Johnny's clearly does not give a
I'm gonna do it.
fuck.
Yeah.
Just hits the button, goes over, doesn't land the trick, kind of eats shit at the end, rolls around. We get this amazing camera angle that is a low angle looking up at the crew's faces as they crowd around him like he's a science experiment. And Nicolas Cage gets to flick up his little glasses and go, is the back okay? Oh, and then the arena tour is like, Johnny! Like showing their tits and freaking out. And that is how we are introduced to the adult Johnny Blaze.
Yeah.
Then we go through a series of these hilarious transitional wipes showing Johnny Blaze being Johnny Blaze. And I was like,
Yeah.
I think the editor was so high on cocaine that they have no idea what they were doing. But they were having the best time.
It's moments like that, like it's kind of cut through with this brevity that I think it could really use.
Essentially, he does a stunt. We realize he can't die. He has to do
Yeah.
another big thing.
People are suspicious.
People are suspicious.
You know,
It's fucking crazy. They're
he's-
like, wow, you can't die, Johnny. And then
Yeah, as men do, using his powers of undeath to do cool motorcycle stunts.
we hate the boys for this.
Why won't they let me do that?
When is it my
When
turn?
me.
When me?
And so people, and the media is talking. They call him Mr. Invincible. They say his shows are pay-per-view suicide. And, I really wish that the stunt work could actually follow up on these bold claims, because especially like what are supposed to be these shocking moments, it's like very obviously like there's no way he's actually flying over 20 helicopters.
Well, part of that is because Nick Cage wanted to do some of his own stunts, which shouldn't shock you at all. The stuntmen did quite a bit, but he really wanted to prove that he could Tom Cruise it, and it was, you can see he couldn't.
Tom Cruise actually sold his soul to like the space devil, so that's why he can do those sick
That's why.
administrations.
Well, also, in a quick side note, Johnny Blaze is supposed to be about 30. Nicolas Cage was 41.
Oh my god! And his veneers are so distracting.
And his wig. His dark black wig this whole movie. And so I think also he wanted to prove he was young. He loved this IP. He'd been trying to get this for a long time. So yeah, the stunts don't follow up for many reasons. One being he insisted on doing them himself. Because I also think, again, allegedly, I think he might have tried to put some of his own money into making this happen, which is part of the reason he had more say than he realistically should have.
Okay, so wow, so it's he kind of absorbed it into his passion project. That's interesting. And that makes a lot more sense.
But this is allegedly, I found nowhere where it said anything about how much money he gave. Realistically, he could have given like 10 G's and just been like, let me keep my tattoo. And
Yeah. And bought the jacket.
as a sidebar, he did have that big Ghost Rider tattoo, and he really fought to have it canon. Like, he wanted it to be in the movie.
I was thinking that. I was like, that would be so fucking funny and actually would give a lot more interesting character to Johnny. It was kind of, as you know, because it's just Nick Cage playing Nick Cage, Johnny doesn't really have a personality. Like,
No.
he
Not
just
at all.
kind of like does these weird little gestures, like in the mirror, and then when he's prompted to speak, he just goes like, oh.
Or it's like,
it would be a lot better. Sorry, go on.
no, it'd be a lot better if what?
If he had a giant Ghost Rider bicep tattoo.
Well, okay, so they got in a big fight, and the studio was like, why would Ghost Rider have a tattoo of Ghost Rider? He doesn't even know he's Ghost Rider.
But
And I'm kind of like,
he gets it halfway through the movie.
any man could have a tattoo of a flaming skull. Because all it is a flaming skull. It's not Ghost Rider on a bike.
Yeah.
So, like, maybe he's cursed and that's something that the demon did. Whatever. They wouldn't let him do it. They covered it up.
Stupid.
Roxy opted to do a bit on her news channel. She's
She's a news lady. Yeah.
For Johnny Blaze's stunt. 'Cause it's a really big stunt in a press coverage thing.
And he famously does not give interviews. But then when he realized that it was Roxy who wanted to do the interview, he said, yes, I will do that. And then they have this very awkward, all of their interactions throughout the film are awkward. Like this
horrible.
They have absolutely no chemistry. Eva Mendes is a beautiful woman. She's a terrible actress, but also the script they gave, this script again is like, there's nothing to work with here. So just negative chemistry. It's like a black hole between them. Negative
chemistry, but all I could think about throughout this was also she was kind of the Megan Fox of that time period.
Absolutely.
Where she was a beautiful woman that we just threw in a push-up bra and she blinked her eyes a little bit and held her mouth open without closing it for extended periods of time. And we were like, perfect.
I was looking through her filmography and I was like, wow, they cast this woman to be Will Ferrell's wife. Like,
she was always that.
Yeah, and I was like, what? This is ridiculous. Like, like what are we? This is that level. I think of delusion and psychosis. I feel like we're kind of moving away from that now in terms of casting.
I want the inverse.
You want a really
give the weird girls the hottest men imaginable.
Yeah,
that's realistic.
Yeah, we haven't had. Have we had that yet?
In a joking way, like I think John Cena's been like, you know, there's only one girl that we all collectively are like, she's weird, and now she's on. Rebel Wilson, for historically, we've always been like,
who makes an appearance in Ghost Rider 2007.
What? Okay, hold on. So we're going on about Eva Mendes, but essentially, Johnny Blaze does this interview, sees Roxanne, finishes his stunt because he's being called away to do his stunt, drives off, chases Roxanne's car.
Yes.
Does like a single wheelie motorcycle trick. It's like, Roxanne, don't you want to get dinner with me? Roxy. Oh my God, that's such Roxy.
Roxy.
So creepy. Simultaneously, this random subplot with these three demons that break into a biker bar happens. And it's okay, I wrote down the actor's name because I was like, why is it always Wes Bentley? This man is always that character.
Wasn't he like in Twilight too?
He's in all those.
The blue filter and like the kind of cringe like post Buffy like.
It's the long pauses.
New metal.
I think he was in the other vampire Bloody Diary, Blood Twilight. You know that shitty MTV show.
There's True Blood.
Yeah, that one.
Wait, no, Vampire Diaries.
It's one of I combined them.
Maybe he was. So anyway, this man is a penchant for the supernatural.
Yeah,
so, and it's 2007.
He's
so
always in a fucking trench coat.
Yeah, and just kind of cringing around and spouting horrible dialogue. And then he kills all the bikers in this biker bar because he's looking for a Ghost Rider. He's looking for a contract that Ghost Rider is supposed to be basically in possession of and protecting.
We understand a contract was signed, but I still was extremely confused by this point, and also was really hung up on how all the demons materialized. I hated it. The water demon, and then
why did they all have weird themes?
Why were they?
Well, they were supposed to represent the elements.
Yeah, I understand, but why?
As we're going through this, we're already kind of like hitting these points in which this movie is getting so bogged down and like bloated, like because there's just they're shoving so many elements that are not working, like unconvincing. The villain isn't scary. The romance is absolutely lifeless. And then we have to stick with, and we're like 20 minutes in at this point. And then we have like an hour and a half left because this movie is over 2 hours.
It is, but I actually feel like most of what I had to comment on was the beginning.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, once we get to Ghost Rider, then it's like, okay.
Then it just rolls. But
Yeah.
I also felt like, and I think this is a good point, it feels really convoluted trying to understand. And I actually don't think comic book movies figured this out until Christopher Nolan's Batman. But it was trying to figure out how much of a comic book it needed to be and how much of a real world movie it needed to be. And
Totally.
I think that is actually the key piece that tanked the entire film.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great observation, because something I was considering when going through this is that it doesn't, like, it has this kind of, this hokiness and this drama, you know, that obviously came from the comics, but it's that, and also this, like, kind of be associated with, like, white trash or punk, like, kind of this low media, like, lo-fi origin, but then it's, like, it's a Marvel joint, so it's, you know, really polished, and overwrought in the way that, you know, like, kind of lifeless and bloodless, so it doesn't, so it's kind of like hokiness, it's like, it doesn't work for, it's not camp or cult, so instead it just becomes this weird 2007, you know, like, over dramatic, convoluted, like, when it's goofy it's still not quite working, and when it's serious it's like we just laugh.
Nailed it.
And I think that's when we get the only kind of points in which we are released from this purgatory of media is when Ghost Rider actually shows up on screen.
Right. So Johnny Blaze hunts down Roxanne and on her bus is like, hey, will you go on a date with me? And she's like, no, Johnny Blaze, I won't. And she does.
That's a really good impression of Roxanne.
Because she rolls her eyes 4 times in the scene.
No,
and I'm
Johnny.
like, this is how you teach a child to act. She's
Yeah.
like, Johnny also,
Johnny
keeps going, howdy, howdy, howdy.
He's like a perpetual child. Like, did you see when he had like the martini glass filled with jelly beans? Yes. So he's been he's been stunted both by the trauma of his father's death and his inability to die because of his deal with the devil.
Wait, did you also realize the jelly beans were yellow and red specifically because those are fire colors?
So he knows in his heart he's Ghost Rider.
It was just the dumb shit like that where it's like,
Like,
these fucking producers are like, pull out the blue ones, pull out the blue ones.
Or the monkey shows he watches.
No, the fact that this grown-ass man only watches the creepy, like, 1930s skeleton Disney. Like,
Yeah.
what is this? But the hard thing is I kept being like, maybe this is really how Nicolas Cage is. I don't know. But anyway, okay. So he says,
We can only dream.
we can only hope. He's, Johnny Blaze like, go on a date with me. Eva Mendes finally says yes because Johnny Blaze is doing fucking wheelies on the highway and basically almost gets into a head-on collision with a semi-truck, knowing he can't die. Eva Mendes is like, okay. Johnny Blaze goes home, I guess, and starts prepping for this date.
Oh, so yeah, he goes home to plan for the date, and then, you know, trying to hype himself up because it's a big moment for him, and the devil comes to collect on his deal.
This isn't the abs scene, is it? I forget because there's 2 mirror scenes where he's like hyping himself up, and at one point he's shirtless.
Oh, he's doing that.
That man loves to chomp. He's proud of those veneers. He paid good money for those
They're
veneers.
distracting. I was thinking, I guess he looks kind of hot if it's like really far away.
If it's really far away.
And his mouth is closed and he doesn't have his hat on.
Right. And he doesn't have his hat on. So Eva Mendes goes, and we see her originally sitting at the restaurant. She's in a cute little dress. She has a crazy early 2000s side part with swoopy bangs. And she orders a bottle of wine. Meanwhile, Johnny is riding to the date.
Yeah. No, he's not.
Is he just riding around?
He's I guess he's just riding around, but it's when he's at his apartment basically like getting ready for the date and he's like trying to hype himself up.
The devil shows up in his house?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The
Right?
devil shows up in his house.
I think so.
I didn't write down the details. I just knew the devil showed
anyway,
back up.
wherever Johnny is, the devil shows up.
That's right.
And then or maybe he's in his garage, or maybe he's on his way to get his bike.
I think I also get confused because his house is his garage.
Yeah, his house is
So like that.
he's in his house garage. And anyway, the devil shows up, Gregorian chants. Johnny's like, no, I don't want to. And the devil's like, well, too bad. And like, you signed your soul away to me. And now he's basically signed on as the devil's bounty hunter. And this is a role that others have taken before him. And I don't know if we mentioned that, but there was another Ghost Rider that was originally a cowboy.
But and they say, basically the devil explains the lineage of Ghost Rider. Do you feel weird that he waited to tap Ghost Rider until he was 40? Like the fact this is his first time to be the devil's bounty hunter felt very strange to me.
Maybe it just like nothing as serious came up.
Yeah,
you know?
like nothing, like it was chill. They were just phoning it in for 40 years.
Yeah,
and then,
don't have much to do.
So Johnny rejects it. He's really upset, and then he turns into Ghost Rider simultaneously. And I will let you take the original Ghost Rider because I think it's one of the coolest parts of the movie.
It's so cool.
But we keep cutting back throughout this really metal series of a giant flaming skull on a
Gregorian
motorcycle.
chants playing, explosions. He like blows things up as he's like rolling through. It's just so good. It's so cool.
But then we cut to this, which is Eva Mendes, who for some reason packed a magic 8-ball to go to dinner.
This is the part when I was like, wow, this is a really sexist and lame movie. Like,
why the fuck does this woman at an Italian restaurant have a not like small, like not a pocket-sized magic 8-ball, like a 1980s full-size magic 8-ball? She's rolling and being like, is he coming? Is he coming?
And then she like grabs the waiter and she's like, do you think I'm pretty? And it's,
you think I'm pretty?
Eva, you're making Eva Mendes ask this poor man who's probably not part of the union because this is 2007. Like, it's ask if she's pretty. It's just the whole thing is so, I don't know, the gall of it. You know, it would have. Honestly think this movie would have been so much better if there was no romantic subplot at all.
Oh, entirely. I mean, the fact that we just prayed Eva Mendes around in the stylist, I hope is burning in hell.
Yeah,
that push-up bra, those low-cut shirts that clearly have been zip tied in the back.
Yeah,
so it's just tight on her chest. Horrible. But anyway,
can't breathe.
So Johnny Blaze is running around.
He's saying he's the best rider.
He's saying he's the best rider.
Yeah.
He is, I guess we don't really quite know what the point of, we know Ghost Rider is the devil's bounty hunter, but I don't think we know what the subplot is, or does he say, I need you to go kill my son at this point?
He's basically like, I have like a job for you to do. Like, you need to go and, because the Ghost Rider is kind of the keeper of this contract of 1,000 evil souls. And then anybody who is in possession of the contract basically gets control over those souls, and then they can take over the earth.
Yeah.
And so basically someone's trying to get Daddy Devil's scrolls, and it's his son, and that is the new metal vampire Buffy core.
Gabriel?
Who knows? What's his name?
Wes Bentley's the act. Blackheart.
Blackheart is his
Gabriel
name.
Was too non-specific. Blackheart.
So Blackheart is trying to get this contract because he wants to basically kick his daddy devil out of the boss seat and take over and let hell reign on earth. Johnny Blaze doesn't care. But it doesn't matter. Night falls, he's turned into Ghost Rider, and he's basically sent riding.
And just destroys the city.
Yeah.
Which the one thing I did like was it wasn't like a Clark Kent Batman moment where everyone was like, oh my God, how did this happen during the night? The town gets fucked up and everyone's like, holy shit, what happened? Things are melted. Cars are blown apart.
It's so metal.
I love it.
It's so good. And this is over 40 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
And then, so we've had to kind of slog through all this unnecessary stuff when the real reason anybody is here is because I want to see a skeleton on fire riding a fucking Harley.
The graphics are horrible, but
I didn't think they were that bad. Like when it's just his face,
it's just him talking. When Nicholas
just doing this, but it still has his cadence.
Look into my eyes.
Like, oh my God.
Look into my eyes.
And just for reference, I did think the demons' names were funny. We had Wallow, Abigor, Gristle, and Blackheart.
Gristle.
Gristle, Abigor, and Blackheart are kind of like,
and the girls.
or excuse me, Gristle, Abigor, and Wallow are Blackheart's kind of like little henchmen.
Yeah.
And like a video game,
Yeah.
Johnny Blaze defeats them one at a time until he can finally get to Blackheart. I think Gristle gets killed first. They have this awesome, very white trash moment where he like pins him with a the demons try to pin Johnny Blaze with a semi-truck.
They can't keep the power of hell down.
No, they can't. And Johnny Blaze kills one of them and then turns back and is rightfully, we get an amazing scene with Nicolas Cage screaming, crying, and throwing up, just like tossing himself around. It's a very famous scene. It's in all those Cage compilations where he's just holding his face and crying and laughing.
Yeah.
The crying and laughing does a lot for me.
It feels like, it's an accurate depiction of like all the powers of hell are in you. And a couple, I mean, since we're talking about the powers of Ghost Rider, he can shoot fireballs. He rides around on his bike. He's got chains. But the most significant is that what is known as the penance stare. And it's said to sear the souls of the wicked. And so basically, if he'll say this, like, look into my eyes, stare into my eyes, and into his little holes. And anybody who looks into it, it's basically they get like I
didn't even think about that. He doesn't even have fucking eyes.
He doesn't have eyes, yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
It would look stupid if he did, so I'm glad he didn't. But yeah, look into where his eyes should be. And anybody who looks into it, if they have evil in their heart, they basically get like obliterated, and he absorbs them, I think.
Yeah, so he eats the souls in some capacity. Yeah. I don't know how. Essentially, he is him again. And the only part about this I thought was really funny was, so we were saying that his character is kind of the equivalent of like an Evel Knievel, someone everyone knows. In my mind, all I could think about was like if Joe Rogan was this.
I thought about Joe Rogan too, actually.
Because it seems like something Joe Rogan would like.
Yeah.
But imagine if Joe Rogan had this weird second alter ego as fucking Ghost Rider. That's that's the cultural equivalent.
Is he like a professional wrestler?
Right. Yeah, he's like a professional fighter.
Ghost Rider, I mean.
No. Oh, Ghost Rider.
Would that be his equivalent?
Oh, yeah. It'd be like a flaming jujitsu.
In like WWE. John Cena.
But that's kind of essentially it. After that, we get a bunch of amazing guitar riffs.
Yeah.
He just tries to kill demons.
Something I noticed, there's this kind of weird, and you can tell, you had made this note before where Marvel was kind of trying to figure out how exactly they're going to handle superheroes, because this was before that annoying cultural conversation of like, superheroes are like the new myths, which, we hear BuzzFeeded around these days.
What? Not like we don't have religion anymore, and those are our gods. What are you talking about?
Consume.
That's not true.
Look into my eyes and consume. But he definitely does kind of feel like this like minor god, like the folkloric equivalent of the devil's bounty hunter. I think is really powerful. And something actually kind of close to like the trickster or the messenger. That's found in various mythologies. So in that way, as Ghost Rider himself, it's very effective. And something I thought was interesting of like the morality of it is he's contracted to the devil's dirty work, but he like helps. He does acts of good as well. Like when he saves Rebel Wilson in an early American film role as a punk girl who's getting mugged, and then he basically just stops his trapper, jumps out, look into my eyes.
To this like kid.
Well, he murdered people.
Oh, I forgot he murdered people.
Because he'd be fine if he didn't have evil in his heart.
So if he was, but like, what? I guess we never. The only reason I thought that part was weird is we never put a cap on how much evil is evil in your heart. And at first, it was because it's just like, can you just fry people that mug people? I don't know if
he had murdered a woman.
Yes, he had murdered a woman.
I guess murder.
Yeah, so murder. Okay.
And probably many other things too, but I think that's really up for the devil to decide, He
wakes up the next day in a graveyard is where he ends his ghost riding.
Yeah, and then he meets a tall stranger who says, "Morning, bonehead."
My first note on that is, why is the gravedigger from 1918? So, I mean, whatever they were trying to do, it was effective. He looks like he's from an old pioneer town. He's part of the gold rush. Right. Yeah. So,
oh, sorry, spoilers.
Spoiler from 2007. So he says, "Morning, bonehead." We have this weird interaction with the caretaker, and that is his only name, and Nicolas Cage, Johnny Blaze, as he takes him in, he gives him water, and he is seeking refuge in this church. And
so during the caretaker understands intrinsically that Johnny Blaze is Ghost Rider, because as we learn later on, the caretaker himself had taken on the mantle of Ghost Rider. And he basically explains, he repeats word for word the introduction of the film.
Yes, he does.
In which we learn that back in a a old west town of San Venganza. Was that?
Yeah, I mean,
right?
that's
San
in my
Venganza,
mind, that sounds right. Yeah.
in which, I don't know, they all killed each other. Something crazy happened. The devil rolled through and then basically sent his bounty hunter to get a contract of 1,000 evil souls and like wipe evil out of this town. And that was the first Ghost Rider.
But we still don't necessarily, they don't talk about the fact they know the other is Ghost Rider.
That's
yet.
true.
They, like,
The caretaker does not admit, like,
right.
but he pretty much knows that. Well, he like explains
The
what Ghost
caretaker
Rider
knows,
is.
but I don't think Nicolas Cage knows that the caretaker is also a Ghost Rider.
That's true. Yeah, we don't learn that until the end.
No. But so we have that weird, unexplainable relationship. Simultaneously, we cut back to the city, and Roxy is doing a news segment on how fucked up the town is.
Yeah,
And has one of my favorite lines in the entire movie. Did you write it down? Because you just looked at me like you did.
it was an edge look, but he totally pulled it off.
No. She looks at him and he's like, Roxy, I'm so sorry.
You're still just a carny.
You're still just a carny.
I wrote it down with like the
Yes,
emoji.
because she looks at him and she's so upset
so
and
much hate in
so
her heart.
disgusted. Granted, the entire city is melted. So like there are bigger fish to fry right now.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, you'll just always be a carny. And I was like, that is an amazing diss. I'm going to use that on strangers in my life. I love that.
After everything, you're still just a carny. My dad was right about you.
No. Oh, my God.
Heartbreak.
And then Nicolas Cage goes back to the church.
Yeah, and that's something I also found interesting. Old Testament mentioned is that, you know, with biker and I would say punk cinema and just kind of media imagery in general, obviously hellish imagery is invoked constantly, but less so heaven or angels or even the acknowledgement of a presence of God.
I thought about that too.
Yeah, and I thought that was very weird. Again, for a Marvel movie, for a biker movie. I mean, we'll see with Psychomania as well.
Okay, so all I could think about, and again, this is me bringing in my own Cage bias. Cage loves this shit. He owned a church. He collected religious artifacts and crosses. I don't know if that had anything to do with this, but I actually liked the weird religious undertone because it kind of made God metal.
Ooh,
and I loved
it's
it.
like a Constantine.
Yeah,
That should be a bad movie.
yeah, absolutely. But like reading Faust and collecting all this weird devil stuff while you get those stained glass windows is just kind of sick. I loved it.
Despite popular belief, Johnny Blaze does know how to read, and with his like weird esoteric.
Him collecting the books, I was like, who is this character? He's going howdy, howdy, howdy.
Howdy.
And then he has like oh my God. So he's trying to get control of his power. He's trying to learn how to use it. He's trying to test if he can do it on command.
Oh yeah, and he still feels guilt over his dad's death.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they keep bringing that up.
They do, but I that didn't even permeate. By this point, I was just waiting for him to either talk to Eva Mendes again or I don't know. I did get a lot of anxiety from the fact that society suddenly started trying to like pin down Johnny Blaze. I was kind of like, how's Johnny Blaze going to get out of this? They all know he's the Ghost Rider. He'll be a scientific freak. Like something about that really stressed me out. That leads us to my favorite scene in the movie, which is a shirtless Nicolas Cage, ripped, just every muscle moving. And there's a lot of controversy online. So I immediately looked this up on Reddit.
Yeah, is it his body?
People are like, is it CGI? Is it his body? Did he have a body double? And it is his body. And he is so tanned and so oiled for this scene.
2007.
He fasted, allegedly, for 3 days. And then right before this scene, ate one candy corn so that the sugar... This one was a quote from Nick. It's like, I ate one candy corn so you could see my muscles pulse.
As he digested it. The first thing he had intaken in 3 days.
So he's like
This
screaming.
is
He
like
like almost
toxic nuclear invention of Americana.
So he's like about to pass out, and after this scene, they had to quit filming, which I love.
Yeah, it's really convoluted. It feels so lifeless when he's not Ghost Rider. It lowers my vibrational frequency. watching this movie.
Not as much as anytime Eva Mendes and Nicolas Cage are left alone together.
Oh god.
Like when
It's
she
so
finally
bad.
confronts him and is like, Johnny, maybe something happened. Maybe we can go on a second date. And she's so fucking desperate. And Johnny, she's like, is something burning in here? And Nicolas Cage goes, yeah, it's the neighbor's hibachi, which is also the most 2007.
It's so 2007.
It's my neighbor's
It's my George Foreman grill.
hibachi. It's
My
the Benny
neighbor's
Hanna down the street. Like, what the fuck is he talking about? It's just ridiculous. So that happens. He basically blows off Eva Mendes again, probably because she has heinous energy. And then
No, he tries to explain to her, but she doesn't believe him.
yeah,
And she's like, I'm going to put you in a psych ward.
Oh
And
my
I'm
God.
insulted that you think I'm going to believe. Because he tells her, which it was, a bit of a twist for a superhero movie. He tells her that, I turned into a flaming skeleton and I ride for the devil at night. And she's like really upset because she's like, you really think I'd believe that? Like you'd make that up rather than just love me.
that's what all the girls are saying.
That's what the girls are saying. Yeah.
Blackheart is on a rampage.
God, and there's
Trying to
still
get this
like 40
contract.
minutes left.
Oh yeah, and there's so much time left. The bike peels around. We have this amazing moment where the garage sign gets bumped and it just says rage.
Rage. Somehow the demons know about Roxanne.
Somehow the demons are allowed in churches.
I was confused by that too.
What the fuck is
I
this
was,
logic?
I was surprised that Ghost Rider was allowed in a church.
Me too.
He's the devil's bounty hunter.
He's the devil's bounty hunter.
Yeah.
Johnny Blaze drives vertically up a building while all the police are trying to shoot him. Johnny Blaze does not kill a man in a helicopter, despite the fact he almost kills a very innocent policeman in a helicopter, kills an air demon through some obscene logic I don't understand. And then we finally get back to what then becomes like part chase movie, part romance, by the end of this movie, you were just bleeding out of your eyeballs trying to understand what's going on.
Yeah, and not giving a shit.
And not
any
giving
of
a
it.
shit. And I kind of feel like, honestly, we can kind of conclude.
I
Like,
think that I don't know if there's anything like
No.
Not everything else is so it's like unnecessary, and it all kind of wraps up, and it's like, well, I mean, we do see the original Ghost Rider, and there's a super sick scene when they're riding together, like Ghost Rider cowboy and Ghost Rider biker, and I feel like that is like the key energy of the film that it really should have been, and like plays into these themes of like an American mythology.
Ooh, well said.
That we don't like, and the Old West and like legends and tales of the Old West, I think are the closest we kind of have to like, an original like American culture, that isn't just like purely just like capitalism.
So I loved it, and I was really stoked on the fact that the horse was also a Ghost Rider.
Fucking
Very
cool.
fucking cool.
So cool.
But then I was really heartbroken when the other Ghost Rider just bails.
I know.
He doesn't
it's
even
like,
fight.
yeah.
Why'd he come?
Yeah. Why are you here?
Why are
Is he
you
like
here?
passing the man? He didn't even pass like a flaming
He gave
bone
a
to him.
gun, didn't he?
Did he give him a gun?
I think that's a gun.
Ghost Rider doesn't use a gun.
That's what he kills Blackheart with.
Stupid
He
movie.
weakens Blackheart. So basically,
You can't kill a demon with a gun.
he shoots him, and then when Blackheart rematerializes, because he's now... So, long story short, Blackheart ends up breaking the pact. All the evil souls that have ever existed ever flood his body, right? Or all the demons flood his body.
Yeah, and
He's like a super demon.
yeah.
Nicolas Cage shoots him with the gun, which
I
then
guess
causes them
I guess
all
if he
to
rides a bike, he
fall
can shoot a gun.
apart.
Yeah.
And then they come together, and he does the stare into my eyes and kills him. I think the only part worth mentioning is the summary of this movie, because I'm not talking about Eva Mendes and Nicolas Cage standing on that fucking hill together.
Yeah,
Is that the demon guy, Devil Papa, basically
Mephistopheles.
I'm calling him Demon Papa.
Daddy Demon.
Daddy
Yeah.
Demon Papa.
Yeah.
Mephistopheles says, "Hey, you kept your end of the bargain. I'm willing to take this curse away from you." And Nicolas Cage says, "Fuck you, I'm keeping it."
Yeah.
And then
That was quite shocking. And then it ends.
and it's like he like throws away his whole life to do this.
Yeah. And then does he end up with Roxy in the
No,
end?
he can't, because he's a demon bounty hunter.
And then she's like, it's fine.
She's like,
Mwah.
"Why did you not choose me again?"
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck me, I guess. Like, she just doesn't care. And that's how this ends.
Yeah.
So
and
it's
that's the end of Ghost Rider.
and that's the end of Ghost Rider.
Thank God.
Thank the Lord. You know, final verdict. Quickly, good movie, bad movie.
Bad movie. You know, it had potential. You know, the character of Ghost Rider is so fascinating. His imagery is so powerful. He's like, you know, he's Western, he's punk, he's biker, he's a bit anarchist, he's satanic. Like, you know, he's very powerful, like, as I think just almost again like a folkloric figure, and he like feels extremely American also as a manifestation, like riding his hog in Texas. Like,
I think it needs a reboot.
It needs a reboot really bad, and I think it needs to get in the hands of like a real weirdo, or just somebody who will like kind of strip it down to the bones of, you know, kind of what makes Ghost Rider such an interesting character.
Who's the director to do it?
I don't know. I was thinking about that. So if you can think of anybody, you know, we can consider this.
It's hard because like all the greats that would have done a good job with it don't really make movies anymore.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you maybe old, and not that I think he's a good, I don't necessarily know if I would say I consider him to be really great, but I wonder if early Tarantino without money, like grimy Tarantino,
I think, or even like maybe a Robert Rodriguez.
Oh yeah,
I think he could be like Grindhouse Robert Rodriguez.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, but it has to be dirtier.
It has to be dirty. Yes, yeah. I completely agree. Like Ghost Rider and Nick Cage. I mean, he had mentioned that he thought Ghost Rider should be a rated R film.
Totally,
and I agree.
Wholeheartedly agree.
So yeah, it's a shame because there are the parts that work. It's like, you know, they really work. It's fucking cool. Like, I mean, I remember I watched this a couple years ago and I thought it was really fun but I also like wasn't paying attention, and I was just like, Ghost Rider's so cool. Like, I need a Ghost Rider shirt, you know? Like, and that's what you should plan to get people to consume Ghost Rider.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because like the concept of a flaming motorcycle devil bounty hunter guy is, as you said, badass. The fact of the matter is, it is not even so bad it's good. It's just an objectively bad movie.
Yeah.
Which generally I find Nicolas Cage, I can watch in almost any context. I really found this almost unwatchable.
It's a slog.
We both have agreed it's a bad movie.
Bad movie.
Let's do a pause and let's go into Psychomania. Also known as The Death Wheelers, is a British horror film, and they classified it as horror, which I think is really interesting. Released in 1973. And
a year after Ghost Rider. The first appearance of Ghost Rider in Marvel Comics. That's interesting.
Oh shit.
Oh my God.
Shit. I always wonder if there's just something culturally happening, or if, I don't know.
The morphic field.
Yeah, because that always seems to happen. Like, what was it when The Prestige came out and there were like 7
magician movies?
Serious magician movies?
Oh yeah, The Illusionist.
Yeah, there were like 9 of them from that time period. I'm like,
all the circus movies, you know, Electricity, you know.
Like as a concept. When electricity popped off, it was everywhere. Thomas Edison was crazy. Don Sharp directed this, and it seemed like I have not seen anything else he directed, but he seems cool as fuck.
He did a number of other films, a lot of them Hammer horror. He directed Kiss of the Vampire.
No shit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
amazing.
So he was working in this cool space. He was also an actor. In previous iterations of his career, just kind of, you know, jumped around like through film, and it seemed like he stayed in it through the end. So knew how to work, I guess, with not a lot of material, which we can clearly see.
You know what the budget difference between Ghost Rider and Psychomania? I mean, it's
fucking.
Millions,
I'll look it up.
But check it out because I'm really curious. Upon reception, Psychomania was met with mixed reviews, but ultimately was considered to be good.
Yeah, it was basically a cult film from the get-go, and even people who were critical of its idiosyncrasies were like feeling like it actually worked in its favor. Like, what's that Brian Eno quote where it's like a medium's shortcomings will later kind of be seen as its like most defining and beloved features.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I really feel that here, and I think people, even when it came out, contemporaneous reviews recognize that. Like, this is a bizarre, kind of hokey movie, but it's also unlike a lot of really anything else.
I was reading kind of the American reception of it. It seemed like the British charm helped a little bit too.
It felt kind of like a TV movie.
Oh, it fully
but I didn't
felt
know
like a TV movie.
if it was just because it was British. And there's actually quite a lot of BBC produced like folk horror films that came out of Britain in the TV movies, I think like 50 to 60 minutes long, dealing with these themes we see in Psychomania of recalling ancient spirits from the landscape and the consequences of said recalling. All part of kind of the folk horror, the new psychedelia boom that seen in other parts of British culture. So
sick.
I thought that was cool.
No, that's incredible.
Okay, the Psychomania budget is not listed, but Ghost Rider's cost over $100 million to make. All that CG for covering his bicep tattoo.
That's insane.
It's horrible.
I feel like Psychomania had to be
it
the low 100,000s, if not $100,000.
I think it was a pretty janky job, especially because so Nicky Henson is the main actor, I believe, and he was also a biker, and he recalled
I didn't know Tom was a biker.
Yeah, Tom is a biker, and so he had read the script for Psychomania, describing how the biker gang would ride on Harleys, and he was like, oh hell yeah, like I'm in. And then he showed up on set and it was all these like janky ass little like British motorbikes, and like that apparently just kept breaking down constantly, and they had to have 8 mechanics on set at all times. So I think it was a pretty run and gun job. But on that note,
should we do plot stuff, or do you have any more pre-production stuff?
let me see. I mean, it has a lot of, kind of horror veterans. Okay, yeah, Nicky Henson was plays Tom, our main character. Beryl Reid, who herself was in a lot of cult films in Britain, plays his psychic mother. And George Sanders plays Shadwell. There's interesting mythology or rumor around George Sanders in this film. George Sanders did take his own life after this film was released, after he had starred in it. And the rumor was that he had left a screening of this film and then left a suicide note saying, I'm so bored, and killed himself.
What?
Yeah.
What? What is nothing about this role? What?
Yeah, and so
Jesus
I think people interpreted it as like, oh, because he had like seen his career fall so far that it like sent him to suicide. I think the true circumstance, that seems like that's not true or can't be corroborated really. It's admitted by even other cast members as being a rumor. He had serious drug abuse problems for many years of his life at that point, resulting in deterioration of the cerebellum.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh yeah, and the music. We can talk about the music a little bit.
We can talk about the music, but as a quick note, that reminded me a little bit of some of the actors that were in Ed Wood's films that were kind of like those...
like Bela Lugosi.
Right,
yeah.
That's exactly who died, who drank himself to death, essentially, because he hit this low point in his career and was starring these movies that later would have an amazing cult presence.
Yeah.
But at the time, he was like bored.
It was just a representation of how his career had like fallen, kind of this relic of a bygone age. Because you especially see in the transition away from like the early film period, which itself was extremely influenced by and like powered by vaudeville, theater, melodrama, and then like moving into more of a kind of realistic, I would say, filmmaking approach and perspective in general, and things that were later seen as quite dramatically effective or seen as campy and hokey. So it's like definitely, I see that a lot in like films of like 60s and 70s and especially like 50s as well, and especially cult filmmakers that are straddling that line, I think, between this adoration but also this uncanniness of like old filmmaking language.
Yeah. Well said. No, fully agree.
Sorry, I got a lot to say about
no. And I don't know much about. So it's interesting because I have tidbits about Psychomania, but mostly vibes. Like I have weird little tidbits, but I'd be curious. I don't know much about the music. So what's going on?
So I mean, it's got a great soundtrack, as we noticed.
It's amazing.
And so it's kind of this proggy, hypnotic score. Again, talking about the tensions between this old world and like the new, coming up of the youth or the generation or technology confronting the old world. It's like, and it's just interesting because it's reflected in the plot, it's reflected in the production, it's reflected in the time it came out. Like, John Cameron did the score, and it was actually a pre-synthesizer score, and it was like him and a bunch of just these kind of like hooligans, I assume the same ones driving around Britain terrorizing the good citizens on their motorbikes, who were just like using just like banging piano wires and like pots and pans, and so kind of creating this quite experimental, spooky and activating score for this otherwise basically folk horror TV movie about zombie bikers.
Well, okay. Also thinking about films with amazing scores that also are experimental and have to do with bikers. I didn't even think about this until the thought just occurred to me. Easy Rider was 1969.
Yes.
Then Ghost Rider, you said 1972.
1972.
And then Psychomania 1974.
Huh.
What the fuck is going on?
There was the morphic field, like the cultural, like everybody is kind of initiating into the same, source.
But it also seems like it got
also known as the cultural conscious.
It also seemed like it got lighter and lighter. Like Easy Rider, I perceived to be a very dark movie, a very serious movie. Ghost Rider, at least, again, I don't know the comics, but turning something into a superhero seems to kind of take some of the wind out of its sails.
It has a hokiness.
And then I did find that the violence in Psychomania was more mischievous.
You could tell that they could not show blood or gore. Yeah. Like I had made a note of that. The nature of the deaths, that they're not explicit.
In a way that,
or like more like mischievous, like little schemes or causing trouble. Like
they seemed more like tricksters, which I think made them really likable.
Bringing back the trickster biker.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I loved the bikers.
Let's
the Living Dead.
I mean, the plot is a little bit more meandering and less.
We could do kind of the heavy beats, and
let's
then
do some heavy beats.
Yeah, because I think it's like there's simply less. There's more like big moments that we can conceivably
address and talk about in a more meaningful way,
rather than Ghost Rider, where it's like, and then this happens, and then that happens, and I don't know why. Like they didn't explain it; they just showed up.
I guess we'll jump into it.
Yeah.
We open with this, and I'm just gonna say this from a design standpoint: beautiful intro that has all the credits and the typeface that goes so hard I really can't even articulate.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's beautiful, and those spooky scents, and it's like this foggy formation of rocks, quite reminiscent of Stonehenge against this. And I don't know if this was the print I was watching from, but like the sky was this like lurid pink. And so it's like really striking and ritualistic from the get-go.
And we are introduced to our biker gang, the Living Dead, and we're introduced to them probably in their most I think they are the most aggressive and most dangerous in this first introduction, and then from here it all kind of falls apart to being like little pranks,
just like causing trouble and like throwing things at people,
right? So they like essentially run a man off the road, and that's how we're introduced.
Well first we see them circling this Stonehenge like formation of stones, which we later find is called the Seven Witches. And it's called the Seven Witches because there was this, and this is a theme that we will see recurrently throughout the film, where these witches basically challenged or made a deal with a far more powerful sorcerer and were cursed to turn into stones. And it's this, we'll see this a lot where it's like basically you're fucking with forces beyond your own comprehension, and you will be punished by those said forces because you can't handle what you've learned.
Yeah, this guy they actively kill, and they establish that he's just kind of a guy doing his own thing.
Yeah.
Kill him, and then we immediately cut to them in a graveyard. So I think we try to establish they are kind of bad through and through out the gate. And the one thing I did think was really interesting is we open, as you said, on that stone formation, then we immediately go to kind of like a country road, and then we are in this graveyard. And I consider a biker gang to be a really urban phenomenon, and I thought the entire setting of this was really interesting.
I thought about that too, because I was wondering, because there's this weird intersection between of like youth culture of like kind of punk, anarchistic, but then also this like flower power, like, or like kind of bourgeois bohemian.
Yeah,
almost.
totally.
And we can dive into that a bit more. And I think that was a commentary on class by the filmmaker that shows that, you know, there's these listless youths who basically have no challenge or any actual tension in their lives, and so they then go seeking chaos and death.
I loved it. But we'll talk about we can dive into that more in a second, because I think we first are introduced to kind of our two main protagonists in the most 70s thing ever, which is them trying to get busy in a graveyard.
Yeah, sex in a graveyard. I was like, this is so crazy. And they make a suicide pact.
So it's Tom and his girlfriend Abby, and they make a suicide pact, and you can tell even from the get-go, Abby is a much more apprehensive and much more grounded character to kind of act as a foil to Tom's pure chaos. And we see this even in Tom's also inability to have 5 seconds of focus.
Yeah.
Like they're
He's
making out
constantly
and all of a sudden,
thinking about death.
thinking about death, or just like lunging for frogs.
Yeah. Yeah, the perpetual child.
And him and Johnny Blaze both have this like extreme inability to understand consequence and are these extreme adult children.
Yes, absolutely. Johnny Blaze through guilt, and Tom through, we understand, to be like this coddling, but also this non-initiation, this initiation his mother, who we meet in the next scene, holding a seance. She is a psychic, and she has prevented Tom from basically taking on his inheritance, his spiritual inheritance.
Yeah, and I think this is such a fun scene because we don't necessarily introduce that Tom is going home. We just see
he just rolls up.
He just rolls up to this mansion.
Oh yeah, I don't even think we see the transition. We just cut.
He just
to, like,
opens the door.
Seance, yeah.
Right. And so we're kind of like, okay, is this third place? Is this his home? Where is Abby? And as you said, we are introduced to his mother, who looks like a Long Island medium. I love her.
Beryl Reed. Okay. Beryl Reed plays his mother.
And she's covered in, oh my God, whoever did the set design for this movie is a god.
Oh, yeah,
This woman has this bouffant haircut, these huge diamond necklace, huge diamond earrings. The whole room is it almost looks like Pee-wee's Playhouse, but like Art Deco Pee-wee's Playhouse.
70s occult decadence.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous. And she's leading the seance for this family that is trying to speak to their son. So we already recognize there is a little bit of a deal with the devil going on here. And Johnny, for reasons we don't understand. God, we're gonna do this
I know, we're going to keep doing this.
Tom, for reasons we don't understand, brings home the frog that he found in the graveyard and leaves it for... which we now discover is his butler. So
Shadwell.
Yeah. And we are aware that he is, we would consider him, I guess, in modern days, and this is all I could think about, was he's kind of cosplaying this biker gang bad boy, and we actually don't see where the rest of the gang goes ever, so we don't understand except Abby, we don't understand what their economic backgrounds are, but we establish really early on that Tom really has nothing to lose and kind of has this weird satanic safety net.
So he brings this frog, like, again, in this cushy mansion that Tom has returned to after basically getting up into trouble and cosplaying a biker with all his friends. Not real Harleys, by the way. And I just, this was the first thing I noticed when it turned out. I was like, those aren't Harleys. So we learn that the frog he brings is over 100 years old, and its name is Maximus Leopardus, and they are only found in graveyards. And we kind of established very early that when Shadwell kind of warns Tom, and he's like, people who catch that, like, they don't, they only do that because they don't know what they're getting into. Again, another warning, as we will see throughout the film.
And I love that Shadwell kind of gets to occupy the role that the caretaker and Papa Demon own. It's just kind of like rolled into one.
It's the threshold guardian.
Correct. He also calls Tom foolhardy, which I just thought was fun. I don't know. It's like foolhardy is a great way to call someone a moron.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because up to this point, I think we perceive Shadwell to be a good guy. We're like, oh, he's, maybe the woman hosting the seance and maybe Tom are kind of these baddies that Shadwell Alfred's over in a Batman kind of way. But we really quickly are met with the realization that Shadwell might also be a degenerate, in that the family leaving the seance, they're beside themselves, they're really happy, and they go to thank Shadwell and the mother, and they present this cross, which is a crazy fucking thing to bring to a seance anyway.
Yeah, they bring the cross as a gift, and then it like pisses off Shadwell so much he basically starts like yelling at them, and he's like, get out of this house, get out of my beautiful mansion. And I felt like, oh, he turns from this refined guardian to almost like this lich,
totally,
and like within that one scene. And so we understand like, oh, there are powers beyond our comprehension like at play here.
And I will say, I think it's kind of nice to have him have that immediate reaction, because
he's like extremely offended. Yeah.
Extremely offended, because then we immediately cut to the scene where Tom and his mother greet each other and fucking dance.
Yeah, it's like this weird kind of like incest subtext almost. And there's this like casualness and strange dynamic between Tom and his mom, and that's almost like teasing and flirtatious.
But is it just British?
Because
when he's like, oh my darling, I've missed you, I was like,
and she's like, oh my sweet Tom.
At first I was like, this is creepy, then I was like, you know what, I wonder if Russell Brand does this with his mom. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just British.
Is it just 70s? Is it, you know how like, is it? Yeah. And it's like, and again, the difficult question, is it just British? Because you don't know how put upon it is. Basically, like, how much of it is kind of their like joking and how much of it is genuine affection.
Because they also are really kind of, their relationship is so transactional, and they both occupy this trickster role in different ways.
Yeah.
And so it's, so essentially they have this moment, they dance, we both immediately recognize that this situation is fucked, something's impending, and that these are two people that are so drastically unserious that they're going to end up harming each other in really profound ways. Whereas, like, as you were saying, Shadwell seems more composed, and like he would do something with intention, where these two people seem like they might frivolously fuck each other over.
Frivolous is a bit frivolous with, forces beyond their control. And so basically, and again, there's a few weird tonal shifts that kind of leave us on uneasy ground throughout the film, where it's, again, there's this weird dance scene, and then Tom basically asks his mother, like, what is the secret of like life after death, and like immediately like from the get-go. But I actually appreciate it that he's such a straight shooter, like he has intentions, and his mom kind of teases him about it, but then Shadwell helps convince her, along with Tom, that it's like to basically give Tom the key to a room in their house, in their elaborate mansion that has been locked since Tom was born, and it is the room in which Tom's father died in, and he has never entered it, and it has never been opened since his father died.
So they keep saying 18 years. Is it his 18th birthday? Is that why they let him do it? Okay, first and foremost, this is a 40-year-old man. Yeah. Or they were just like...
with a wig.
Or whatever's in the water. What was it they started putting in the water to make us young? Estrogen? Like, what gives us the big eyes?
Oh, the fluoride.
Yeah, there's some shit that's in the water, but this man's a full-grown ass man. But they're like, Tom, you're 18. You're allowed in the room where your father died, which he seems, it's weird. And I actually really loved this. And I don't know if this was intentional or not. But he has like a tension with his mother, but a love for his mother that seems transactional in a way that he, like, at any moment he could have stabbed her and I've been like, oh, he was planning this. There's like a very menacing underlayer between
menacing intimacy. Of like, and of that basically straddles on the border of like what is not known and like what is not admitted and what is not shared. And so so Tom is basically on his entrance into adulthood. He is now a man, and now he must be responsible for basically knowing his own heritage and inheritance from his father, which is why he's given the key.
And is the frog necklace the key?
No. The frog necklace is like a protective talisman.
Okay.
So we see the frog again, and we start to understand that there's deeper significance to this frog, and that we will see this particular frog only found in graveyards throughout the film as basically this a symbol or representation of whatever religion or supernatural beliefs they hold, which I think is, people describe this film as being a satanic biker film, but I think it's actually a bit denser than just pure Satanism.
It doesn't even really read as Satanism.
It doesn't read as Satanism.
It reads
to me
as
at all.
is paganism.
It reads as Druidism and paganism.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, I'm glad I wasn't the only one. Like opening on Stonehenge, and then the animism of the frog, of these kind of not admitting. There's so much talk about death, but there's no acknowledgement of a hell or a heaven. It reminded me of like the Celtic, like traditional, realm of the afterlife, Anun, I think it's called, and it's like this undefinable state of like that which can just simply cannot be known. There's like no promise of like life after death in the way that we conceive of it as being of heaven or hell, like, and there's no presence of God, which I think, so I think it's a singular monotheistic God, so it would be inaccurate, I'd say, to say it's a singular devil.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And I it's interesting because I noticed that, and I did like that they offered us the frog at least as some talisman of whatever
Yeah,
religion
that's
this
yeah.
is. So we had something so it wasn't so abstract that we had nothing. We had this frog religion, kind of.
Yeah. The frog religion, the frog god. No, I think I wrote down frog god.
When the frog is floating in the mirror, I want that. This image I want tattooed. I'm obsessed with it. I started screaming at the screen. I was just like, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
And so you're exactly right. Tom undergoes this kind of brutal initiation.
Yeah,
where
he goes past the threshold.
Where he watches his mother. And you might, because there are a few areas of this where I like really didn't quite understand what was going on, but felt like I got it. She offers him up as a baby.
Yes.
Okay.
To the frog god.
I also love that woman cannot lift that baby. Because it's still her. They just like, they didn't unage her. It's just fully her with the baby, and you can tell she's trying to do this, but only
she can't do it
about like collarbone width, and it's like, don't you want this baby? And
the guy's like, yeah, fine, that's enough.
We got it. Sign the contract.
So he goes into the room.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna recount a little bit. So he goes into this room where allegedly his father died, and then he learns his true origins, which is he sees this black mirror that shows him a vision of the floating frog god, and then of his mother with Tom as a baby, and she's at the Seven Witches, which is again like known to be this kind of haunted, like old, like leftover kind of supernatural place that people don't dare to go, basically a graveyard. And she offers up a baby Tom to the frog god,
whoever this man is.
Whoever this is. And it's let me see, I said Satan appears before her, or the horned god. That's more of the horned god is more of a thing of like neo-paganism and Wicca. But definitely like this kind of representation of, again, like supernatural forces, of which she like signs away a great sacrifice for a great amount of power. And we can assume through that she has been able to commune with the dead and have an understanding of life after death. It is noted also that we can tell that this is the frog god because he has a frog in his ring as he takes the baby.
All the little ceramic frogs are fucking so cool.
Love the frogs.
Signs a contract. We also have the frog god demon.
Yeah.
In a really similar cloak to the second time we see Demon Papa in
Daddy
Johnny
Demon.
Blaze.
Yeah.
When he's wearing that Pope thing I was talking about. It's almost the same coat. And so I kept kind of being like, oh, maybe.
And he's wearing a hat.
Yeah, and the hat. Maybe this is something I'm just not privy to. Maybe this is like some kind of imagery.
Satan does appear as like a well-dressed gentleman. In the Vitch, he also he has spurs on his boots and a big hat.
But it's it's a
highly specific costume.
It's like a really specific costume. Yeah,
we'll have to look into this. About why specifically that collar.
Yeah.
So
okay, but also he doesn't really learn anything about his dad in the room.
Well, the reason he was able to see that vision in the mirror was because he found his father's eyeglasses on the floor. We don't know anything really beyond his. Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. So totally. When he's in the room,
after.
he's like, huh?
He's
and
like, what's going on?
He's like, Oh yeah, and he freaks out. They're screaming from an indeterminate source.
Screaming at mirrors is also a shared theme.
Yeah. These poor man children signed away to the devil and they're tormented.
Bummer.
So yeah, he comes out of the room and then basically his mom admits that like his father, so she got this knowledge of how to come back from death, and that Tom's father attempted it, but he didn't believe that he would come back. And in order to believe that he was going to come back to life, he has to truly want to die. So his father, I gathered that his father attempted it, didn't believe enough, and so he died.
Okay, sorry, not to like fully bring us back to this, but I also thought it was really interesting because Johnny Blaze isn't he 18?
Yeah, he's
when
18.
he signs.
Uh-huh.
So he's a legal adult. I've never seen a film where someone has signed away
A baby.
an unwilling participant.
Mm.
I thought that was really interesting that like this devil didn't need consent. The devil just took the baby.
just
Normally
took the
the
baby.
person has to willingly be like, I'm an adult and I agree to this.
Yeah.
But I guess it's like a sacrifice and people sacrifice babies all the time.
Especially when you consider like the history of like kind of at least the Christian conception of witches, which was an interpretation of, you know, an obvious like propaganda against like expressions of paganism and like folk magic and folk religion, in which, you know, there was so much fear mongering specifically about how witches would steal and like sacrifice children or mash them up and use them for their flying ointment.
Yep.
So
But then abruptly, so Tom gets all this info and then it's like, fuck it, it's time to ride.
let's ride.
Yeah. And we get to really focus on the helmets of this scene, which I really love,
the
because
skeleton helmet.
the costuming is amazing. And as a quick note, I did see somewhere that obviously the jackets and the helmets are really iconic. The costume designer, I guess, had just had some kind of experience with Day of the Dead.
Oh,
Isn't that awesome?
Really?
Yeah. And so I guess
That's
these
cool.
were partially informed by some of the imagery that they saw. And I thought that was awesome.
That's really cool. Oh,
That's
what
my
a nice
only
detail.
nugget.
Thank you.
This movie is mostly vibes for me. I had a hard time finding a ton that I thought was graspable. A lot of it was extremely academic, which is great because it deserves it.
Yeah.
But it's not where my brain was. So Tom goes a riding and he's out with his group and
The Living Dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's out with the Living Dead. Yeah, they're dropping heavy hints this whole time.
What's gonna happen to this biker gang? And so he basically becomes even more obsessed with the idea of dying, but now, you know, coming back to life after killing yourself. And you can only do it, that's another important part of the ritual, it's you cannot come back to life if you have been murdered or died by any means other than if you committed suicide with the full intention to die and come back.
And I really wondered this, and I'd have to do some more research. I did feel like each of the biker gang members was a representation of something. Like Jane is a really specific character.
Yeah, she is. And minced chopped meat.
Chopped Meat is my favorite character. Well,
He's my favorite too.
Pinky, Chopped Meat, they all had amazing names.
Oh yeah, what are their Hatchet, Hinky, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Jane, there's a few, but to get back to it, I started trying to think about what role each person occupied, specifically because Jane is the most confrontational, the most willing, and kind of always feels like she's trying to fuck Tom and is in this bright red jacket and is clearly the one with all the makeup and is all gussied up. And I think we are supposed to punish this woman. Like we love Abby, who is his virginal, you know, David Bowie looking. Yeah. That woman looks just like fucking David Bowie.
Oh, yeah.
Abby is very sweet, very skeptical.
That British face of hers.
Right. And realizes Tom is a little bit more on a suicide mission than he would be in a normal day. And so they start wreaking havoc despite the fact they have a lot of police presence on them. I guess even the mom, Tom's mom was like, hey, you need to be really careful. The police are paying more attention to you than normal for some reason. And because
they've been running people off the road. They ride through and, you know, the supermarket.
They ride through the supermarket. So this scene when they just like, they're so cute. Like one of the guys just carries a hot dog ice cream stand. Just like,
and their little bikes are so silly. Like they're on these just little British mopeds, and they're supposed to be this biker gang, but it's all these like these like prissy British mods who are just, with their their little skull helmets, and then they're just like, I don't know, just kind of like like driving near pedestrians and
not hitting them, just driving slowly next to them
through like public parks and like community centers.
Oh my god! And their pants are so tight.
It felt like a youth culture PSA. Just like, do you know what your kids are doing?
And a lot of this movie felt like that, where you and I were talking recently about hippie exploitation, which this obviously is not that, because it's the time period.
It's a little, I don't know, I got kind of a post Manson feeling from this movie.
Totally.
And then like, obviously satanic, or satanic pagan, who knows,
panic.
Supernatural occultism, esotericism.
Panic.
Yeah, esoteric panic. And but also we'll get to the scene where Tom. So anyway, Tom is on a suicide mission, and then he says this great line, which is "see you around," and then he drives off a bridge in the midst of their reign of motor terror,
while the police are chasing them.
Yeah.
And we are like not even 30 minutes in at this point.
Yeah.
And his body washes up for two angelic little blonde children.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about the kids.
They're dressed like it's the 1940s.
Yeah.
Like they have a wooden boat and are in like little overalls. They don't fit any other aesthetic we've seen up to this point. Like I don't, knowing the director, I don't think it was meant to be this heavy-handed, but it really does feel like a punishment.
For Tom?
Yeah. I mean, we're just fucking over this.
In the river.
So Tom washes up, we see his dead body, and then we immediately cut to Abby going to Tom's house.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And she explains to Tom's mom that she wants to give Tom a proper living dead burial, which also seems strange because that suggested that they've done this before.
I wouldn't be surprised,
Yeah, but they then proceed to have an extremely bizarre scene where we go to all the hippies digging.
At Tom's funeral. Yeah.
Is he taxidermied?
I was like, at first I thought
Explain what it is.
No, I thought it was one of the members like imitating him or like paying homage to him, because so we get to our biker gang, the Living Dead, and they have dug the grave for Tom, and we see Tom's body perfectly upright, positioned on his bike, just standing in the grave, like completely still, as if he's alive. And there's no indication of rot. There's no indication of a corpse. There's no coffin. Like, he looks like it's so strange, like this, convergence. And then they're all making flower crowns around this weird prop of Tom's dead body on his bike. And he's not even fully in the grave. He's like kind of sticking out of the grave. And then they're just going to bury him like that. It's not deep enough. They're like
above shoulder level. His head
he's poking out of the grave. So it's like little weird things like that I think actually make this movie like so captivating with no explanation whatsoever.
It's charming in a way and has the kind of it goes there elements that I don't think Ghost Rider had. We have the weird frog god talisman.
Yes.
We have this crazy, I'm gonna throw myself off a bridge. We have
see you around.
Oh,
I love that. Was so good.
Sticking out of the grave. So while they are doing this, what I guess is their quote unquote traditional way to bury a body, which is just prop him up on a boat and throw flowers at him.
His perfectly preserved body.
Shadwell comes to pay his respects and offer the talisman.
But and then there's I do want to call out during the funeral scene how it just becomes like a 60s like folk rock song for like 2 minutes, and it's actually a very beautiful song where he's just kind of singing about instead of standing still he chose to die. You can see the ghostly rider passing by, Ghost Rider mention, and so they're all like, it's this very soft kind of like almost like folk poppy number for like this biker gang to be singing, and they're again throwing flowers and honoring Tom as if he wasn't sold to the frog god. it's yeah.
And none of them are wearing their leather jackets.
And yeah, they're not wearing their leather.
They're all wearing awesome clothes.
Yeah,
they're
they look
in, like,
great.
Bright colors.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Again, and it makes you wonder, but no confirmation, which I think again does this movie a favor that's different from Ghost Rider, in which it provides this kind of conflicting information, and it determines like, well, that's not, I don't really have to explain that. Like, you can think of that what you wish. Totally. Like, there is again the implication that it's like they're not actually bikers, or not part of like the biker subculture or lifestyle, and it's more like this kind of sense of cosplay that they can just literally get in and out of when they change their clothes. And now it's suddenly they're hippies, and then but tomorrow they're going to be bikers again, right. And they'll use that as the justification of basically their youthful hedonism, to jump around and do whatever they like.
Right.
Because they have no consequences.
Right. Yeah. And it does, it has a lightness to it. That you're right. They can kind of go in and out of different. It's very strange. But Shadwell just throws the talisman at Taxidermy Tom.
Mm-hmm.
They bury him.
Yeah. Taxidermy Tom.
And
they somehow bury him.
They somehow bury his whole head.
Yeah. They just shove it down there.
Well, wait.
They tip him over.
If you notice, when we cut back to the grave, it is literally a mound of dirt.
Shut up.
It's not even like packed down. It's just like a big ass mound.
It's almost like they knew.
So we then cut to this new character who is on a road nearby, who his car is broken down, and he essentially is like, oh, I'm going to take the long way back. His wife is like, no, just cut through the mysterious
seven witches.
Witch formation that's not at all cursed. And he's like, oh, what if something happens? She's like, you're fine, go.
You don't believe that stuff, do you?
And then so this is my one weird fun fact. Okay, also this is the mound of dirt. It's so good. It's just,
they just shoved him under there.
And then all of a sudden, as this random character is walking through, we see Tom ride out of the dirt pile.
He bursts revving out of the grave.
Apparently, a lot of the stunts were done with wires, which is also why they had to use really light bikes. Isn't that bizarre? So I think they literally like hooked him onto something and took a car and yanked him out the other side.
No, it looks like that. It was like the dirt bursts out. He came revving out from hell. It's great. And then he runs over the bumbling motorist crossing through the seven witches. This guy is just kind of it's the carnage has begun. The power of hell has been released.
Okay, and that's how I felt, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be badass. And then he immediately does the most mundane task known to man, and he goes to fill up his gas tank.
Yeah,
despite the fact he's an undead bike.
It's like hey, an undead biker's got to fill up the gas tank. The bike's not undead, just you.
I just thought that was so funny.
He fills up his gas tank and makes a phone call.
Oh my god, you're right.
Yeah.
Fills up his gas tank, makes a phone call, fucks over everyone, doesn't pay for fucking shit.
And anytime he's confronted, so like at the gas station, the guy's like, you go pay for that. And then he's like, what are you going to do? Kill me? Like, so this youthful confidence and lack of consequence has been taken to like this profane extreme, basically, because he is lacking the ultimate consequence, which is death.
And he kind of waves it around like it's this random big dick energy. Like, you can't kill me. So, and you're like, it's not enough of a declarative statement, because they'll be like, you have to pay for that. And he's like, kill me. And they're like,
go ahead. They're like, what? And then he just beats him up with his superhuman strength.
Like, there's an A to B, and he just goes immediately from A to Z, and I love it.
He's not able to inhabit society without causing chaos, just because it's like all of the, all of the basically the expectations of behavior have fallen away, because he's like, well, I'm not even afraid of death, so I'm not afraid of anything. What are you gonna do? Put me in prison? Like,
right. And it's kind of like if you dialed up, we saw that more comically in Ghost Rider, and now to see it here in a way that it is a little bit more menacing, I think feels correct.
Yeah. But also has sorry, go on.
No, please.
But it also has, that recurring line of you are given the powers of undeath, and you use it to do cool motorcycle stunts.
Well, I kept being like, do you think that they heard the word daredevil and were like, yeah, daredevil.
Devil?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Daredevil. I forgot about that.
Right? So I was like, are they just do they just get real hung up on the phrase daredevil? And we're like, what if they were actually devils doing dares?
Yeah,
Like,
what is it with bikes and Satan? Satan loves to see you ride though. Revving up.
Then he calls his mom at the bar, and his mom's like, "Oh, sick, so cool you're alive."
I knew you'd come back. Yeah, she was like, "Oh yeah." She's kind of casual about it. Yeah. Yeah, and she's like, "Are you going to make it back?" And he's like, "Maybe." She's like, "Okay, see ya."
Meanwhile, this girl, for no reason, is just like trying so hard to ride his bike at the bar.
Yeah, she's hot for his hog.
Yeah, she's hot for his hog. Like, pays for all his shit.
Yeah, because he doesn't have money because he's dead.
He obviously doesn't have money because he's undead. He's like, cool, whatever. Goes to the parking lot. And you kind of think he's going to use his powers to take advantage of this woman. You're like, well, yeah, because he can just have sex with whoever he wants and kill whoever he wants, and that's the deal. And instead, he still has this weird level of morality.
Yeah, he can't cheat on it. He has to go find Abby.
Right.
Yeah, and I thought that shocked me, actually, that's kind of like where his, lack of inhibition ends, is like his loyalty to Abby. And he's like, he has to bring her over the threshold with him. And he's just kind of using people almost as a means of just to get back to Abby and like finish his business.
Right. It was very romantic almost,
yeah.
But then he goes on this killing spree. So the bar goers that were in the bar where he was placing his phone call to his mom rush out because they hear the woman scream who paid for his drinks, who was trying to ride on his hog, who he was like, "No, you can't ride on my motorcycle. Only my baby can ride on my motorcycle."
He chokes her. Yeah.
Yeah. And they would go out to all these dead people, and it's like 4 dead bodies.
Yeah.
And I don't know who the fuck the rest of these people are.
Yeah.
But he definitely killed that woman who just bought all his shit.
Mm-hmm.
Killed these 4 people and just takes the fuck off.
Yeah. To go find his gang and be like, "I'm back."
And it seems kind of anticlimactic.
Well, he shows up and then they're like, "You're not Tom. Fuck you." Then he lifts his helmet. He's like, "I am Tom." And they're like, "Nice." And then he basically kind of starts this campaign to convince everybody that like, okay, you have to kill yourselves. And then you will be like me and you will no longer fear death.
This was one of my favorite parts because I feel like that actually is the most menacing part of the whole thing, which is kind of like, I love the idea that you have to commit fully. And if you don't believe, you're not going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Followed by, how much do you trust me? And it almost becoming this gamified, I don't know, something about it really spoke to, I think the Manson family component was a good call out because it really did have this, well, if you follow one reckless leader, is it lemmings off a bridge? Like, are we all going to be susceptible to this? Watch your kids. Don't let them hang out with these people, these rich little spoiled people that have no real consequence, but everyone else is accountable for their actions. I don't know. This was my favorite part. I just thought this was awesome.
And it's like, and that he's kind of positioning everybody to see death as a gift and a pleasure. And it's like, because it's the greatest expression of this morality or philosophy driven by hedonism, like to the furthest extreme it could go. But it's also like the folly of youth. And again, we come back there toying with arcane knowledge beyond their comprehension.
Entirely. And it takes us then to this, again, they're all in a church, which I did think.
Why is Tom allowed in the church?
Why is Tom allowed in the church?
Why is Tom allowed in the church? Why are they letting these demon bikers in churches?
I was shocked when Tom burst in the church, but essentially we're at the funeral for Jane and Hinky.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
Jane and Hinky die.
They kill themselves.
They drive into traffic. Tom comes into the funeral and everyone's like, "Oh my God, what's Tom doing here in his jacket?"
Yeah.
They open the casket. No one's in the casket.
Jane's body is gone.
Jane's body's gone.
Jane came back. Hinky didn't.
Hinky didn't.
Because he didn't really believe that he wanted to die.
And I loved, they were like, "Oh, well, he hesitated at the last second."
Mm-hmm.
And something about that was so menacing. And then we immediately cut to this super fun double ride between Jane and Tom.
Uh-huh.
And we don't even really feel that bad about Hinky. We just want to ruin these 2 old ladies' days. And they're like banging on doors.
They're smashing the windows.
But that's it.
They cut tires.
Yeah, but they're just like being kind of mischievous.
Yeah, they're causing mischief.
They're like fake punching.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's all they want to do. Again, using this power of undeath, and it's like, for the kind of most inconsequential of crimes. Except Tom did murder people.
But never at really his own hand. He would the cars would kill the people. He would just run the cars off the road, which I also thought was kind of interesting, because then we also can't hate him that much because he's not a cold-blooded murderer.
Yeah.
He's just kind of
he's influencing towards chaos. And a funny thing about the car stunts, I think they're so appealing when they're using those little slow-ass, non-dynamic 70s British boxcars. This looks like they could tip over at any point, and often they do. It's not like a Ferrari. It's just this little...
The pyrotechnics are great, because all of a sudden it just bursts into flames.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that really fun scene. Jane and Tom kill a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Another car bursts into
When
flames.
you come back, you can do anything, remember?
You can do anything. And what I want to do is spend my eternity doing this.
Yeah.
And then we go to where it's so funny, because I also think the romance in this movie is what kind of keeps it grounded, whereas the romance in Ghost Rider is what disrupts the entire
it just
thing.
ruins it. Yeah.
So we immediately have Tom go to approach Abby to be like, not only am I back, but I'm ready for you to come with me.
Yeah. Then you have to come with me, because if you love me, you'll kill yourself. Which is also what he asked her at the very beginning of the film, but now with the promise or the insistence that she comes back from death instead of them being dead together forever.
Comes back from death, but only if she fully believes.
Yeah, and she doesn't believe, or at the time when he approaches her, she's very apprehensive about this. She obviously wants to be with Tom, but she doesn't want to, she doesn't want to die.
Which also almost feels like her having one foot in and one foot out of the lifestyle. Jane is evil.
Absolutely.
Tom is evil.
Yeah.
We recognize that there's a redeeming quality in Abby.
Mm-hmm. And even Tom's mother recognizes that when Abby went to visit his mother upon his death, and she's like, oh, you're not what I expected at all.
Right.
Yeah. It's there's this understanding that, she's that's a great call out, that she's not in it for this. It's more she's in it for her love for Tom and maybe the thrill of youth, but it's her heart is no, come on.
She can be saved.
Yeah, she can be saved.
She can be saved.
And then we enter this great sequence where the living dead, one by one, basically kill themselves in order to come back. And it's, again, speaking to they can't show these deaths in violent ways. So we have chopped meat. I
love Chopped Meat's death.
Chopped Meat's death was really good. He left his bike parked on the street, and he encounters a human woman, a living human woman, and she drops her package, and then he picks it up for her, and they have a moment of connection. And just as he's about to ask if she wants to go on a ride on his bike, Tom and Jane are shaking their heads at him from the distance, and then he has to choose between life and death, literally, and then he goes up into the building.
But wait, he parks right next to the police notice, no parking anytime.
Yeah.
Just because he wants to ruin someone's day.
He wants to ruin someone's day. I didn't even notice that. So of course he parks his bike, goes into this building, the skyscraper, and the cop comes up and he's like, "Hey, this is your bike, isn't it?" And then he's like, "Yeah." And then he's like, "I'll come down and get it." And he jumps out of the window to his death. It's really good.
It's amazing.
It's really good.
It's amazing.
Traumatizing. Who knows who. We have a lot of falling deaths.
Someone ties, I forget which bike member it is, they tie chains themselves and throw themselves in the water.
Yeah, he walks into the river and drowns. One guy jumps out of a plane with no parachute. That was a crazy scene.
It was a crazy scene, but it also, I was kind of like, how much money does this dingy biker gang have?
I know. What?
Plane jumping in 2023 is expensive. In the 1970s, to be like, I'm gonna go skydive.
Yeah.
I don't know. It put it in a weird, the Hinky and Jane drove into traffic. Mm-hmm. Easy done. Everyone else was so dramatic about it
and creative.
Yeah. I did not understand.
I loved all the different the different falling and jumping deaths. So yeah, there's this crazy scene where it's these skydivers are, you know, so far above Great Britain. And then one guy jumps out of the plane without a parachute. And we see for a good minute or two him just falling,
Thrashing
careening,
around.
thrashing down into the ground with no parachute. And we assume he dies. Abby is the last of the living dead to attempt her suicide. We assume it's an overdose. She's seen lying peacefully in bed. And then we enter what is honestly my favorite scene in the movie, because of course it is.
I didn't like this part. So
Real?
you do.
Oh my god! But okay, so she has this vision of, again, the 7 witches' stones. She's kind of walking across the graveyard, and it's like this beautiful, I think, like kind of folkloric or pagan vision, wandering through a misty field, again indicating the psychic or druidic underworld of Anun, of like these beautiful heavenly misty fields, in which she is greeted by her love Tommy on his motorbike, and then they embrace and he takes her on his bike. We can kind of interpret this as like a dying dream, and she's dressed in these like flowing folk robes, and it's like so different than the Living Dead lifestyle, than the kind of, you know, chaotic run and gun feel of the rest of the movie. I found it really striking and romantic and beautiful, but I want to hear your thoughts on it.
No, I loved it. It just you know, at first when this movie kicked off, I was kind of like, okay, this is great. All the main characters are pieces of shit, and we're gonna glorify these pieces of shit.
Yeah,
it seemed
British youth culture.
Right,
I was like
freaking
out.
We weren't gonna It seemed like we weren't gonna punish them.
Yeah.
So then when we have Abby, who clearly is not a real Living Dead member,
yeah,
who like wants to
she's
be a
just
part
in
of
it
the
for the
hippie movement.
Yeah.
She's in it for love.
She's in it for love.
She's in it for love.
Yeah.
She wants to just lounge around in fields and pick flowers and play guitar.
Yeah, and be with her man and
Be
kiss
with
her
her
boyfriend.
man.
Like, who
And
among us does not want that?
And so I'm watching her become the protagonist, and I'm like, no, not this like super virtuous.
You like the punks and stuff. Yeah, or no, that's a good. Oh yeah, it kind of brings back to the virginal archetype,
right,
that she's like the good girl who doesn't do all these bad and whorish activities, and so she is the only one who could potentially be saved.
She's also the only woman who, like, his mother's wearing a ton of makeup. Jane's wearing a ton of makeup.
Oh yeah, she's fresh faced.
The woman at the bar is wearing a ton of makeup. Jane,
and she's quite modish and like covered up.
Always modest, always in a high neck. Even that flouncy robe she's wearing is like huge and oversized, and you can't see any part of her. You know, I mean, obviously this is what was going to happen. I just I had higher hopes for smut.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was a TV movie, so they couldn't show it. So Abby's dying dream, and then Tom at the end pushes her away, and she's in despair. And then we enter this kind of quite interesting sequence in which she's basically having an out-of-body experience back into the real world, where she sees herself as a nurse pushing her own corpse through the morgue. And then
she's given the frog talisman.
Yes, she is given the frog talisman. And then when the amulet, the talisman, is placed on her body, she awakens back into the real world, and to find that her suicide attempt had failed because she did not really want to die.
Then we cut to the morgue, and everything from here on, the last like 20 minutes is kind of its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
We cut to the morgue. They morgue. I mean,
They
like,
morgue.
we realize some of them are alive.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the morticians get killed.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because all the living dead are in the morgue, and
All the living dead are in
and
the
then they like awaken and they freak out the morticians.
I'll let you kind of wrap us out.
And so Tom's mother, seeing basically the havoc that he is wreaking, and like that she is also responsible for, she decides to break the bargain she made with the frog god for his baby soul. And at the same time, basically Tom is literally aiming a gun at Abby, saying, "You have to kill yourself or I'm going to kill you. And if I kill you, you won't be able to come back." And, you know, she is like caught in this decision. We cut back to Tom's mother, and she performs this ritualistic breaking of this contract, and due to the consequence of breaking her contract, she turns into a frog and is condemned into that form forever. And I liked that they, you know, related the fact that the mother is just as responsible for Tom's undead, you know, this lich-like state as much as he is, you know, like he was kind of cursed or condemned into this, like because of her own desire for power. And then his desire for power led him to this profane knowledge. So Tom is like frustrated. Abby is like, I'm not going to kill myself. Like, I don't want to live. She shoots him. Obviously, he does not die because he can only die once.
Oh, yeah. And they make a point of that.
They make it.
Heavily,
They make a point of that. Like, you can only die once. Like, after that, like, you cannot be killed. Again, condemning them into this state of like undeath and turning the living world into the underworld, like just by the nature of their presence. And so as Tom goes to choke Abby to kill her, he looks down and sees, set against a delicious proggy soundtrack, his hands superimposing into stone, and then very slowly and
I loved these effects.
I loved it. And it's just a still image with like a rock texture very slowly fading over it. Abby screams and cries, and the frog god appears as all of the living dead turn to stones, become a new formation of the witches, and then it ends.
Like, I wouldn't say this is hippie exploitation, but it really did have that touch of final girlism.
Yeah.
That was like, well, the virtuous, believing, sweet-natured woman gets to live.
And it's like, yeah, this ideal of like the hippie still living on, like despite obviously us being like kind of post that flower power period, at least, you know, in Britain in the 70s.
No, totally. But it's also interesting to suggest that like we were able to see that there was good in her despite the fact she was a participant in this gang, whereas normally in most hippie exploitation, everyone died.
That's true. That's a really, no one gets out. Like,
no
even
one
if you
out.
Like just your mere association is kind of like a condemnation, like of your involvement. Like there's no redemption. There's no potential for redemption. It's like you're kind of morally corrupted forever.
And this also, I think, suggests that maybe the witch stones, I can never remember what it's called, the witch henge,
the seven witches.
Seven witches. Also, that kind of brings us back to this formation will continue to grow and continue to be built, which I thought was kind of a fun piece of mythology.
And in that way, like kind of this old religion or like a super like occult esoteric presence in Britain will live on, even if only like through these structures that the masses avoid, but those who seek what should not be sought out like will discover.
Yeah, totally. So all right, so what, I mean, it's pretty clear, but what do you think?
Great movie. I think it's super fun. Like its idiosyncrasies are part of its charm. I honestly think anybody could watch this and find something beneficial, either artistically, thematically. It's a good movie. It's a good movie.
It's a good movie. I agree. Whether it's the style, whether it's the, I think you could hate watch this. I think you could watch this. The performances are fun.
Yeah, super fun.
Costumes are amazing. Music is nuts.
The music is super good. Listen to they did a limited soundtrack release, I think back in 2007 or so. It was like a limited vinyl pressing, but hoping they bring it back. Unfortunately, a lot of the original audio files for the music in the film is lost. So it's pretty, like the song they sing at Tom's funeral, it's like they're only what they had on the print. Is what they have, which is kind of a bummer.
Kind of a bummer.
Yeah. True.
Whatever. Okay. Yes, it's a good movie. We love it.
Bikers from Hell.
Yes, Bikers from Hell, literal daredevils. There's a lot of these kinds of movies, which I think is really fun. The hope is maybe next time we find something where a good movie's a bad movie, bad movie's a good movie. But I think the fact of the matter is these ratings are right. The people knew. Yeah,
it's like there's a, we can try to redeem Ghost Rider, but that's not really my business.
None of my business.
I'm not interested.
No. They should never remake Psychomania. They should remake Ghost Rider.
Yes, they should.
We'll see what we do next, but this was a long ass episode. So thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.